My name is Evan Broadbent. I'm a kind of new faculty in the SFRC, School of Forest Resources Conservation. My background is I got a bachelor's in tropical botany focus at the University of Vermont. Came here, did my master's at SFRC, tropical forestry. Graduated in 2005 from here, and then went on did my PhD in Stanford ecology, focusing on tropics, working with lots of different species. Then I bounced around with some postdocs, ended up for 2 years at the University of Alabama as a professor in geography, and eventually with Angelica, who's a professor in tourism, and my wife, and I met her here in TCD back in 2002, and we did the whole thing together, all these crazy PhDs and everything for a long time now, and so we ended up back here. So I wish she could come today, but she's teaching a class right now, so she can't. However, so that's my introduction. Please check out my website, stacklab.org or gatoreye.org, and I've got some links here. Check them out. And so I'm going to just be talking about some adventures we had over this last summer, and why not? So adventures in the tropics. So Angelica, our children have tended to for years now to travel with us on our research trips. Liana, when she was about a month old, moved to the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica for 4 months. So Kai has also now traveled all around. So these are our kids, and then lots of collaborators. Before Kai, we used to travel with our 2 80-pound dogs as well, but it got a little bit intense once we had a 1-year-old. So this is us happily doing field work this summer in Tunis, and I'll be talking about some of that.
See their luggage.
I have a picture of our luggage. So the adventure started actually with Angelica going to the Galapagos and starting to think about a really interesting study abroad program that UF is developing in the Galapagos. That might come through. Maybe there's some interesting opportunities for that, including in Ecuador. So separate from that. Then I've been working at the University of Sao Paulo and Chicago quite a bit. It's my university. It is, it really. I love that place. We might be going back to the summer for a couple months potentially. Anyway, so we were down here, and the first reason we were going was global scale studies. So I'm going to start talking for just a minute at the global scale and immediately work down to like a leaf scale and then kind of stay around the leaf scale until my 15 minutes are up. But what we're doing is we're trying to figure out, there's been this new bond challenge, and basically the countries in the tropics in particular around the world have come up with the goal to restore huge, vast areas of the planet. And in order to do that, how do we do it? And what's the technology? Maybe drones can go out and plant trees, all sorts of ideas. Anyways, there's a huge area and a lot of money involved, but where are we going to focus? Where are the hot spots for restoration? So that's actually what we've done, and it's currently in review. And so I'm hoping this will be an important paper, and we've just submitted it today, actually, to science. So this is the result in review. So you can see that we have actually identified, using a large series of global geostatistical analysis, where are the places where we have the most benefits for restoration globally. Where's the areas where it would be most feasible to do restoration? And then you combine them together and you look at their congruence, and you can figure out, well, where would be the most cost-effective place to be doing restoration globally? Indonesia area really coming out strong, obviously parts of Brazil. So interesting results. What really was exciting for me here is looking at global scale carbon. And so for this, I created a map of global carbon potential, which was the first one at the time. And then before this paper came out, another paper came out, which kind of said they did that, but it's not the same thing because we do it at 30 meters. So how much carbon could be stored if we restored the entire surface of the tropics? We have that number. We used a global series of plots to do that. Now we're advancing past that. Now that that's done, we want to do it for all biodiversity conservation priorities globally as well. So a big team, a lot of people involved with the IPBES, Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform Biodiversity, trying to come up with this concept, global scale for biodiversity in general. So that should be really exciting, a lot of collaborators. So quickly zooming down now to the gator eye. What is the gator eye? So instead of talking about what the gator eye is, I'm going to show you a TV news clip from our work this summer system down in University of Sao Paulo. We've been on the TV. The past summer we were on TV quite a bit across Brazil and even across parts of South America, Central America. So this was a video specifically about our operation at the University of Sao Paulo, featuring some of our collaborators at Lastrop. So that's the tropical, I don't know if you know, Lastrop run by Pedro. But They came and they spent a whole day with us filming with they actually had their own drone, which they were flying while we were flying our drone. And then they show pictures of us. So this is basically a nice way to say, well, what is the gator eye? So that's basically what we're doing here. We actually talk about the different sensors. We've got a whole ground station set up here. Our objective in this particular operation was to simply fly the entire University of Sao Paulo Piracicaba campus. And then they've got plot networks all over the whole campus, and they're undergoing a large-scale restoration of the campus in particular. It's an agricultural campus. So this was a very interesting opportunity to have field plots, easy student access in the immediate area, and also lots of professors and faculty have their study plots right on campus. So there's going to be a lot of student integration, et cetera. So this is pretty exciting for us. It'd be like flying UF, except we don't really have many study plots around here. We have the natal area, we fly there quite a bit. So what we have is basically we control the drone from the ground station, we can upload it, and then when we're flying, we're collecting data from LiDAR, hyperspectral sensors, and RGB sensors. So basically what the LiDAR is we're shooting 300,000 points per second. So it's like a laser range, like a laser pointer like this guy, except we do it 300,000 times per second. And every single time that we shoot that, we know where it hits to within a few centimeters. So we get very dense point clouds of forest structure. That's exactly what he's saying right now in Portuguese. He's saying that we get the LiDAR, the hyperspectral. So we understand that the LiDAR is forest structure. The hyperspectral data is like our eyes, except instead of 3 bands, we're collecting hundreds of bands of light. You see the whole shapes. With that information, we can now look at different types of tree species, if there's stress, different types of agricultural species differences. We can zoom in and we can actually see. This is a tropical forest in Acre, Brazil. You can zoom in, play around with the point clouds. This actually shows the height, so red is higher, black is lower. So we can get extremely detailed forest structure. We put the hyperspectral data over that, and we can start to look at composition. We get RGB data as well. I'm actually using the exact same hand motions here because I'm saying the exact same thing. So there you go. Virtual forest. That was the highlight of it, and they did a good editing job. I actually spent like an hour editing their edit because I took it from 8 minutes to 2.5 minutes, so it would fit in here, and it was pretty sweet. So I trimmed out all the unnecessary stuff. Basically, you get your virtual forest, and you can do what you would like with your virtual. So the remainder of the next components that I bring up are highlighting how we've been applying this particular data collection system in the tropics this last summer. But first, before we do that, let's get a better idea about what these point clouds look like. So we first fly over and we get raw point clouds. We extract things. We create components here, digital surface models, canopy height models. What are these things? Well, I'm just going to show you because that's easier than seeing a bunch of acronyms. So we fly over. In 6 or 5 hours of flights, we collect 310 million individual points. We know where each one is within a few centimeters. So that's what it looks like. You can put a profile 1/2 meter wide through here. You can see the tops of the buildings and the floor, the interior structure, of course. It's very pretty. That's what it looks like from the side. Then we have developed all the algorithms, which I've been working hard on, to be able to strip away all the stuff above the ground. Now you get the ground. Once you get the ground, you create the raster. This is the digital elevation model. That's what everything is on top, the buildings and the trees and all of that. Then you can make a raster of what's over on top of it, and now you know where the buildings, where the trees, what is the heights and everything like that. You clip it and zoom into a smaller area, you can start to see in more detail how beautiful these point clouds look. And when you actually play with them, and I was thinking of doing it for this, but I don't have time, you can zoom around and zoom in and see branches and everything. It's really quite remarkable. This is what it looks like when you're traveling with this system. We've got our drones here and equipment here, and that's batteries and sensors and lots of car seats. So we travel with a lot of gear. Following Brazil and other work, we flew into Lima. We were doing work up in the Andes, and then working our way down the entire, from Waikato all the way down into the Amazon, collecting plot networks that Oxford and others have installed. So that's going to be some interesting data set that we've collected. Also, simultaneously, we're running a workshop on how to use advanced sensors to be mapping different types of ecosystems from the small forest all the way down to the large forest in the Amazon, along with Aka and others. We managed to land our drone at the top of a tree. It took a day and a half to find it, and then we had to figure out how do we get it down? Is it broken? And we found this guy just down the road, literally. We said, hey, you look strong. You want to go climb this tree and bring our very expensive drone down? He said, sure. He thought about it and then said, I'll try it. And he did. He just climbed right up in his shoes, and he managed to bring the drone down without breaking anything. What are the odds? He was 27 meters up.
And how much does it cost to drone?
This is the whole system, close to $180,000. So, yeah. So then we gave additional workshops and to other groups on the geostatistical analysis of these, thinking about governmental groups and NGOs in Lima, bringing in, and we've been working a lot with ACA recently, the Amazon Conservation. From there, we went off to have adventures with Betty and Scott and Diego. So here's an example of Tumbes, an amazing study region where you can see an elevational gradient, you can think about birds, and in my mind, when I think about animal distributions, the first thing I think about is, well, what's the climate and what's the structure? So that's what Betty was inspired, and then inspired Scott, and Diego was inspired because he took my drone ecology class, and we had a lot of fun doing this kind of work right here in Florida. So did a lot of work on drones. Look at this massive tree that you find in an extremely dry forest. It's an incredible area. Betty enjoying the view, but more than anything, fearing for her life. This literally drops off hundreds of meters straight, inches from the tire. We're like, okay, but what we were doing is we were collecting point cloud cookies. And every one of these center points, and I think there was like 30 of them, is a bird point count that Diego's going to be doing over the next year or two. So, okay, great. We got all the structure, elevational gradients. We got a lot of data, and that's what it looks like when you start spinning your cookie around, looking at the tree trunks, branches, the floor. So an amazing data set. How did animals interact with this in 3 dimensions? So there's the crew, Scott Robinson. Park Service, like to thank Park Service here, Suriname. So that was a lot of fun. Costa Rica was our next trip. We spent some time there. We were looking at riparian zones as connectivity corridors for animals. Also thinking about a massive wind disturbance that recently hit La Selva. For those of you who worked in La Selva, many of you in this room, massive wind disturbance, huge amount of change that you'd be kind of appalled, but a really interesting study opportunity. And so we're going to be comparing data from a decade ago to now, thinking about what's going on, thinking about plot networks. Here we had our leaf cutter ants. Wouldn't that be cool if you could use these to do like a nutrient analysis and you get your free leaf cutters? So we also did the first drone LiDAR mapping of Mayan archaeological sites ever. So we packed that in summer as well. Most importantly, we found this in Costa Rica, and I'm too bad we don't have the audio because this dinosaur is terrifying. I said, Angelica, what do we do? And she said, stay calm and keep moving. That's her word of advice for faculty and grad students alike. And the kids are somewhat concerned, but more than anything, they're just like, can we get moving because mosquitoes are biting us? That's my presentation.